Use the right lane to turn slightly left onto A339, then turn right to stay on A339.
Full-scale opera, a comic opera that would be taken seriously and ideally mounted at the Vienna Court Opera. His long-awaited comic opera returns.
At 28.
22, writing to this moment, and I could smell the things I could smell, I could feel the things I could feel. It was as if I was reliving it absolutely, exactly.
What did you do in that moment?
I had to get away from there. I didn't understand what was happening, so I left that area. And I remember kind of wandering around thinking, what's this? This was something absolutely unusual for me, unknown. But again, it was the fact that nobody else seemed to have this reaction. And I understand now that that's not uncommon.
No. Well, I work with emergency responders, and some of them have...
Take the next right to stay on A339, then use the right lane to turn right to stay on A339.
In our brain, and that's...
Use the right lane to turn right to stay on A339.
Emotion and memory before...
Keep right to continue on Western Avenue.
It's the only sense that does it, which is why smell is so evocative. You were in the army for a further 12, 13 years when you came back from the Falklands. Did you tell anyone what you were experiencing?
Nobody. No.
Continue on Western Avenue for 3/4 of a mile.
It's back to that shame. So I know now, years and years later, that I have a diagnosis of complex PTSD.
And just for listeners, complex PTSD is not about one event, it's about a series of events.
Yeah.
What happened after that then? There were other occasions, were there?
In 1/4 of a mile,
so
at the
while I was
roundabout,
doing
take the
serving,
second exit onto A339.
2 motorcycle road traffic accidents. I really don't want to be graphic, and I don't know. But one, I recall, it was absolute torrential rainfall, and I was driving through a town called Arundel in Sussex, and a motorcycle overtook me in this torrential rain, and I watched as the motorcycle hit the white line in the middle of the road and slipped and went under a milk tanker. So I
Exit the roundabout onto A339.
So bring that smell which was familiar to you.
Continue on A339 for 1.5 miles.
And sometimes now, when certain things happen, I do kind of have a link back to that.
Just going back to the meat smell. That's hard to get away from in ordinary life, isn't it? What was happening? How are you mitigating that? How are you dealing with that?
I was developing coping mechanisms without, it wasn't conscious, it was just something I was doing. Now, I was married at the time to a German lady, lovely lady, but she absolutely wouldn't entertain. We had 3 children, she wouldn't entertain not serving meat at every meal. And this was problematic, as I'm sure you can imagine.
What did you do?
Basically, I developed the ability...
In 1/2 a mile, slight right onto the A34 slip road to the Midlands, Oxford.
Eating at the table. When I cooked, and we shared it kind of 50-50 because we both worked, it would always be vegetarian, and that was fine. But whenever she cooked, it was absolutely meat and potatoes kind of stuff.
Slight right onto the A34 slip road, then merge onto A34.
This avoidance, withdrawal, these feelings of shame and blame.
Decades.
And when your brain and body are telling you need to get out of somewhere because it's dangerous, that basic survival instinct, which happened every time you smelt meat, what were you doing?
I would do anything to get away. Again, my understanding is the amygdala shuts down everything that it doesn't need.
Yes.
That's a kind of drain on resource. And one of the things that the psychiatrists think is that memory is something it doesn't need. So I usually remember the trigger and thereafter nothing until I wake up, usually in a hospital. usually quite badly injured.
Because you've done what?
I've done whatever it takes to get away.
In a quarter of a
And I
mile,
know
at the
from
roundabout,
whether,
take the second exit onto the
after
A34 slip road to
police
Oxford,
statements and
Cheveley.
ambulance, I've run across the M1, the motorway.
To get away from the smell of it?
Yeah, I've swum across swollen rivers. I've broken my neck. I've dislocated my shoulder. Been severely hypothermic. Lots of different things, and that I won't know anything about that. I'll wake up usually in hospital not knowing who I am, so I still don't have memory of who I am, anything, and there'll be a doctor asking me, who's the current Prime Minister, and I don't know. And that's quite a scary place to be as well.
Yeah, it must be.
Exit the roundabout onto the slip
Your body
road.
trying to protect you, and your brain trying to protect you and keep you safe by not replaying memories, by blocking stuff out for you, but not helpful when you're trying to piece things together and understand yourself a little more.
Yeah, and gradually over several hours, sometimes up to 12 hours, those things will come back to me, who I am, who the Prime Minister is. But what never comes back is what's happened during that event, that episode. Some people call it a fugue state.
In a quarter of a mile, use the right 2 lanes to take the A34 slip road to Oxford.
And it led to me being afraid of going out. So my house was a safe place.
Use the right 2 lanes to take the A34 slip road, then merge onto A34.
I've been triggered. I was on a bus and a guy got on with a hot dog. Bang. I remember nothing else until I woke in hospital. Slowly but surely, I found it more and more difficult to leave the house, and I found myself making excuses to not go into the office. And my relationship, my marriage fell apart because I was difficult to live with. I wasn't violent or nasty. I was just difficult. This thing was taking over my world. So that fell apart. So I had to move out of the family home. So now I'm homeless. I kind of sofa surfed for a while, but then that was difficult for people as well. I had a company car, so I lived in that for a while, but I still had the meat problem. And then the company wanted the car back. So now I was properly homeless.
So homeless, you'd split up from your wife.
Yeah.
Did you have a relationship with your children?
Not really, no. Nobody understood, and I kind of avoided everything.
Yeah.
I still had this shame, and particularly when it came to my children.
Yeah. How and when did you get help?
Not long after that, because one day there was a locum GP, so not even a mental health specialist, who saw me and he had my file and he said, "Jeff, this is insane what we're doing. Look at all this stuff." He said then, "Have you heard of an organisation called Combat Stress?" And I hadn't. I went for an interview and they said, "Yeah, absolutely, you fit right into the bracket for what we do." I had a couple of 2-week residential stays with some kind of group therapy, really. It was fantastic. It didn't solve anything, but it gave me an understanding of what was happening. It gave me some basic tools, things like mindfulness and grounding techniques. Count all the red things in the room.
Yes. They're basic grounding techniques to put you right back in, to put you in the present, so that your brain isn't either dwelling on the past trauma or projecting to what might happen in the future. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I did a lot of mindfulness, which you're probably very familiar with.
Yeah.
And I practiced that every day, and that helped. Combat Stress helped me a great deal. And it was as a result of that I was allocated a room in a hostel for military veterans with mental health problems. But I still had the meat problem, and it was a shared kitchen. So I found myself still isolating in my room. And I think that was so deep-seated by then, and all these techniques were so new to me, that the kind of the deep-seated stuff took kind of control. I was not eating. I wasn't sleeping. The PTSD was a symptom of that, as you all know. And I was just kind of spiraling downwards. And it got to the point, Sean, when I'd have to wake up in the mornings and try to find a reason. If this was my life going forwards, like an eternity of this, I'm kind of not sure I really want that. so one day I decided I couldn't anymore. I kind of gave in to it. I told the guys in the hostel I was going away for a few days so no one would miss me. Locked the door of my room. The intention being, obviously, is that I didn't have to do this anymore. Spoiler alert, here I am. So I obviously wasn't very good at that. I did spend about 3 days pretty much unconscious.
And still with 3 children.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, because they'll be adults now.
Yeah.
And worried about you.
Yes. One of the children was actually a stepson, and he was now living in Canada. One is a teacher. He lectures PhD students now in philosophy, and he was in Sweden. And my daughter was in China. She's the youngest, and I hadn't really communicated much with them, but she found out that I was in a bad way, and she came over to the UK and came to the hostel.
It's okay. Have some water.
Fine, sorry.
Okay. No, please don't apologise.
And she saw the state I was in and said, come on, Dad, we need to get you some clothes, get you some food. Sorry. And she took me to Milton Keynes, which was kind of the nearest town as it was then. It's a city now. And I was incredibly anxious, but she was kind of there holding my hand, literally. And when we were in Milton Keynes, we saw a lady walking a dog with a red coat. Now, I'd never seen that. I'd seen guide dogs with a yellow and hearing dogs with a purple, but not a red one. And it said medical alert dog in training. So I've always loved dogs. So I said to her, can I ask you some questions about your dog? And she took a long time to explain to me what about this charity, which I'd never heard of, and they're based quite near to Milton Keynes. And she told me there are 2 arms of this charity. There are what they call biodetection dogs that live with families, and they go to work each day at Medical Detection Dog Centre, and they do work detecting cancers and UTIs and Parkinson's.
Amazing.
Yeah. And the other part of the charity, they train assistance dogs to live with people with health problems. And the dogs are trained to detect an odour, and the dogs will then alert their partner that there's an episode coming up, and it can give them enough time to take preventive action.
So the dog can smell the mix of adrenaline and cortisol and the stress hormones mixing with sweat and all the other bits and pieces that the body produces when you're in a threat state.
Yeah. So the lady had told me that to qualify for one of these dogs, you had to have a potentially life-threatening condition that you had little or no warning of the onset based on a sense of smell. And it was only when I was back in the hostel that I thought, hang on, I have a potentially life-threatening condition. There are only so many M1s you can run across, and so many shoulders and necks you can break. So I applied online to Medical Detection Dogs, and I remember thinking, this will go nowhere. In my life, I'm not this lucky. But I was.
You were.
Yeah.
You were. And you wrote to us to say that after many interviews and tests there came, and this is what you said in your letter, the real life-changing moment. On the 3rd of December 2018, 2 trainers from Medical Detection Dogs walked up to my door and introduced me to the most beautiful black Labrador called Charlie.
Yes, that's right.
What was that like for you after so many decades of pain?
Well, we still didn't know that it would work. A dog had been trained, and it had worked kind of in a classroom environment with the trainers, and they're fantastic trainers. So they said, Jeff, the only way we will know is if we go somewhere and you're triggered. So I live near Aylesbury, if I'm going to be triggered, Aylesbury's the place to go.
Okay.
There are so many potential trigger points there. And sure enough, within 5 minutes, I was triggered. Charlie was trained to have 3 alert levels. The first one, he'll just back off and absolutely fixate, and he might vocalize a little bit. Second level, he'll make contact. And the third level, he'll jump and headbutt me, basically. And we were in Aylesbury, and I was triggered, and he went straight to the headbutt.
And this is before your conscious brain had caught up with
Yeah.
the fact that there was a problem. So Charlie's in the studio with us,
Yeah.
and has been really good, just lying at your feet.
Yeah.
But Charlie then smelt the smell of your unique scent
Yeah.
of when you're in fear and responded to get you out of the way. That's extraordinary.
It's extraordinary. And we've worked out that I have about a 15-second window between the trigger and it being kind of the point of no return. Charlie's average response is 3 seconds.
Wow.
So plenty of time to sort myself out. And I carry with me kind of aromatherapy oils
Okay.
wherever I go.
What smell is that
This
you've got
one
in
is
your hand now?
peppermint, I think.
Okay.
Have a smell.
Yes, I will.
I'm really
Oh, that's
sorry. I'm snivelling a little bit. Sorry.
No, don't please. Yeah, it's a lovely pepperminty smell.
Yeah.
So what? If
So-
you smell that, where does that take you? What does that do for you?
So what I do is I put a dab of that on my top lip, and all I can smell is that now, and that takes away the problem. I mean, I've still got the kind of the mental stuff that comes with it to deal with, but I deal with that with grounding techniques and mindfulness and distracting the amygdala. People say, well, why don't you just do that then every day? Just stick a load of that on your top lip. That would then become my new norm, my new kind of base level.
Yes, and if you didn't have it with you, that would be a real issue.
Yeah, also it actually burns after a while, too much of it, and it's quite expensive, so but it works fine. Charlie alerts me. So before Charlie, I was probably admitted into hospital, into A&E, at least twice a month, costing the NHS bucket loads of money. 7 years down the line.
You're okay.
Yeah.
You're here.
Not a
Wow.
single admission, not one.
Really?
And we've calculated that he's probably saved the NHS £100,000.
Good dog.
Yeah.
You've had him now for how long?
I've had him 7 years.
7 years. Charlie's given you so much, hasn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, chief among them, I think, perhaps your sense of self.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was really strong with me before. And then it was, as you've identified, it was completely wiped away. And what I saw myself as was worthless.
How is he doing?
He's sleeping.
He's just sleeping.
Yeah.
He's stirring a bit. He did give me a good old sniff when he came into the studio, because it's hard to know whether you should approach a medical detection dog or not, because he's in the middle of working, so I don't want to disrupt his working pattern or throw anything out. So I guess it's always really important, isn't it, to say, can I?
Absolutely.
Is it okay if I say hello to you?
Absolutely. And almost always it will be okay. But it's about exactly that, kind of getting permission.
Can I say hello? If I say hello to Charlie, will he come over? I
Yeah.
don't want you to.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
fine.
Charlie,
Charlie, who is it?
hello. Come over and say
Let's
hi.
stretch first.
Have a little stretch. Oh, aren't you gorgeous? Oh, aren't you gorgeous? Yeah, you rub your head against my leg. Do you want to?
It's all about reward. There's no getting away from that.
It's the same with all of us, Jeff. It's the same with all of us. There we go.
Yeah.
So a very deep relationship that you have with him, and a life-saving one in some
Absolutely.
respects as well. You were telling me as you were coming in and